Better leave it to the professionals.
Blessed by Bundy, blah, blah, blah.
Started off with a bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, yo, set it up.
Surfing on the web and I'm shooting at 3. I've been goated when I got my G. I'm an alien boy from a different planet, yeah. So I got my drink, I'm riding in the 1920s Model T Ford. Call her Era Lord. Call me Levi, playing on the keys, boy. And I'm about to put my gloves on. If I said it, then I meant that. Yeah, I like that one, I'm about to get that. Crash that whip for the drumsticks, whiplash. I'm about to get them all. Are you with that? In a white boat, surrounded by blue. I want one, but I got a cop too. I wanna fly high in the sky, arms out wide, trying to soar from a bird's eye view. I'm on fire, Ricky, Bobby, cracking the pavement, Whitney, Bobby. I'm a Saki bomb, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Bruce Wayne been a dog, and I keep it 101, cause I'm feeling kinda spotty. You sipping on some rock and I'm sipping on octane. The only thing around my neck is the
Started off with a
blockchain.
bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
NFT, Twitter, blockchain. Seeing with the ghosts and we ballin' like the Brown James. Crypto. We can make a trade, get the memo. Reviews not falling for the FOMO. Listening to coffee with Captain. You know we worldwide, they loco. I ain't never gonna stop rapping. Orlando, yeah, we working magic. We rocking Ethereum entities. I just went and caught me a half base. Man, I got a shout out
Started
to
off with a
40.
bit, now I got coin. I see where y'all going. Been poppin' since Web 1, hella hoes on Web 2. I was living a dream, now I'm on Web 3. And it is what it seems, topping the pyramid schemes, I'm telling you. I'll sell you a percentage on Nebula. Shout out to Vince, he'll set it up.
Freaking the mood to choose one, but they got knowledge to move, son. I'm shocking in shades with my brother in shoes. Yeah, them blues is coming. Even though it's hard to pick, eeny, miny, mo, soda on the mix, no biting lips, it's time to go. Index number 1, no thumbs up, you gotta scroll. Looking at the ghost in studio, it's time to go. Had a helmet on by myself until I met a mask that wanted to have a face off. Had to bring my chainsaw, full tank of gas in the ride with my brakes off. I'm A1, but a different kind of steak sauce.
Welcome to Coffee with Captain, powered by ApeCoin, where we dive into all things crypto, NFTs, Web3, and cutting-edge technology. Remember, nothing here is financial advice. Early-stage tech can be exceptionally volatile and risky. So grab your coffee and join Cap and Steve for today's conversation.
Welcome to the future.
Welcome to Coffee with Captain. A little bit of a late start today. I am going solo. Had a host locked in. They had to jump out after I'd gone to sleep last night, which is totally cool. They had something come up. They were a firm, strong, maybe probably, but had something else jump in. So I am all by myself for the late start today. Appreciate everyone coming through, though, for the late start as we get it going. We got the ApeChain, ApeCoin raid team coming on in about a half hour. So give us a like, a retweet, a comment on the room. As a reminder today, nothing today you hear is financial advice. Meme coins are risky. NFTs are risky. Crypto is risky. All of these things are exceptionally risky. Can go to zero at a moment's notice. Nothing you hear today on the show is financial advice. People on the show likely do hold things that they talk about. I will talk about things that I hold today. So going to be a one where you don't want to take that financial advice. You want to make sure you do your own research as you navigate the world of crypto. Thursday, September 25th. And look, I'm going to say some stuff today that I think might be kind of a hot take, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. I'm talking about it in the DJ Network War Room this morning, and I'm getting a little bit of pushback, but I feel kind of firm on this stance. If anybody wants to come up and talk, as always, welcome to request up onto stage. We'll have, again, in about 20 minutes or so, our friends over from the ApeCoin team coming on, PPman, SimpleFarmer. I mentioned Project X. I'm pretty excited about that. Probably going to toss together a video at some point here showing what it's like to or how to LP on Project X, because for those who have not done it, it's it's a little bit complicated. I will give the kind of, and by the way, GMs to all the GMs in the chat. RDL, good seeing you out there as always. Mesh and the friends. Iceman, been good hearing from you in the DMs lately. Hitting it regularly. Mesh, Green Edge, Motto, Thomas, Teacher, Katie, good to see you out there. Never misses a show, it feels like. Like I said, give us a book. And Bookmark, by the way, I've heard Bookmarks do quite well. Thank you, Teacher Katie, for the $1 tip. Appreciate that. I heard Bookmarks do something for algorithm stuffs. Funny enough, I actually was reading a thread recently. I was reading a thread recently about the algo from Alex Finn, former NFT god, which I know some people had some issues with and all that good stuff and aren't the biggest fan. I think he does a good job breaking down the algo pretty well, though. And he had mentioned that X even nerfs their own articles. So if you write an article, it's considered a link. And spaces. So if you take your X spaces and you put them into a tweet, your tweet will get nerfed, even though it doesn't technically take you off the site. The site reads it as way, which is wild in a world where they have Grok, which is, able to animate images, videos, and basically make it so it can talk now. I did something the other day. I could pin to the top if I can swing it and find it while hosting, but they've done a video where you can put in words and have your image talk it out, but they can't figure a way not to get their spaces nerfed by not get their spaces nerfed on their own site. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but here we go. But I'm going to get into my hot take here in a second, but again, give us a like, a retweet, a comment to the room. We'll do the daily market update here in a minute. Few topics to cover on this morning that we will hit on, and I will give some opinions on NFTs actually running a little bit, or at least some of them are. Of course, the market down doesn't help. If you are here, you are probably watching the market currently bleed out, which is probably a less than ideal situation for you. I do want to talk about, though, on the positive note, and we'll talk about this more when PPman comes on alongside SimpleFarmer, but Project X, look, I'm a huge fan. I have said before, ICOB said a tweet. He said this, kind of like semi-joking that they will retire bloodlines at that airdrop. And I've been LPing on there for quite a bit. I've been LPing on there, doing double-sided LPs for quite a bit. The U-Pump hype has been really good. It was printing at one point, it would print like $100 a day. It doesn't do that anymore. I said it wouldn't last forever. Didn't last forever. But you kind of earn points towards this airdrop as you're going. And when ApeCoin dropped on there, I think I saw a 200% yield. It's down to like 50% this morning, which is still a crazy number. And it's also hilarious to hear people say only 50% yield. Like only 55% yield. That's all we're getting right now. Feels like a hilarious thing to say, but 55% yield at the moment on my current LP, and it's cooking in the direction of Hyperliquid, which means ApeCoin is outperforming Hype. Of course, Hype's getting hurt a little bit by Aster on the back end there, which is less than fun for me with some big, nice Hype bags going. Still up from those quite nicely, but not feeling great about that. And going to see what happens probably pre-TGE, and then I'm going to play it very careful, very close to the vest. And I got to say, I'm having a discussion in the war room, so I'm just going to bring it out. I have been, I've said before, look, I'm a fan of Luca, Pudgy Penguins, everything they're building. I think Igloo is executing as well as anybody else. But this came out today. Luca Netz says that he talked to Warner Brother to partner up on music. Pudgy Penguins wants to get into music. Pudgy Penguins, by all accounts, seems to be doing pretty well. They have global sales, global distribution. But I have to sort of look, as much as we will glaze people all day long when things are going well. There's been a lot of discussion about Abstract on the timeline lately. There's been a lot of discussion about what's happening with Abstract. There's been some accusations that I don't know that I haven't seen them confirmed. I can't fully agree with. But accusations aside, we've been talking for this show for months. Like, a lot of the people in the community are feeling it. A lot of the people who are on Abstract have been feeling it, where the TVL is down and it's not great at the moment, which TVL isn't always the most important metric. I've been, as somebody who likes Katana, I've been saying productive TVL is something that I am a fan of TVL that's actually going to work. When it comes to this, looking at Igloo as a division, though, Pudgy Penguins seem to be doing well. The Pengu token's down 25%. I get it. That's the market. It's down 25% in a week. It happens. For me, it is the worst performing coin in my portfolio, but I understand it goes ups and downs. I sold a little before it dipped yesterday to move it elsewhere where I thought it could be more productive. Just because I don't know, I think I'll have a chance to buy in if it starts to shoot back up, and right now didn't feel like the most productive place for that. But we've talked about Abstract. We talked about the streaming platform hasn't really had any updates. Cap and I talked about, and I'll have to check this morning, but we'd be sitting there with 20, 30 viewers at times, whatever it was, because I know not a mega streaming platform, but certainly a nice one that got us streaming. And there would be people with 1, 2, 3 above us. There's a guy who's always at the top. Looks like I'm in the second row now. But it looks like they may have reorganized it by people watching, so they may have fixed the streaming part. But there was a period of time when we would be so deep disappeared for discoverability because we had people find this show in Abstract early on when the Abstract was streaming, and then for some reason the algorithm, we're here. They said consistency, all these things. We'd be here 5 days a week, 2 hours, and we would see us 5, 6 rows down and people with 1, 2, 3 stream watchers. So it looks like they might have fixed that, which is good. We talked about the XP thing, which again, credit where credit's due. They're fixing that where, it did take a while. And I think maybe the team's a little insular because there's, the feedback wasn't getting there because it's feedback I'd heard in a lot of circles and we talked about on this show for a while, ear to the ground. You would, think maybe they had kind of heard through that, but, totally cool that they didn't, then they did fix it. But the XP, for a lot of people who, aren't familiar with that, there's these sort of levels you get. And like one of them is gold to, I think, platinum or diamond. I don't even remember what the level is. But, you couldn't get from gold. Once you got to gold, it was like impossible for anybody to reach. So we had that feedback. The sort of nebulous XP system you would hear a lot about where, for me, I would have it where it'd be like 1 week I would get like 9,000 XP. The next week I'd get 20,000 XP. I wouldn't really change it much. And they'd be like, well, that's the point of it. But then I see other people who are getting 300,000 XP. And I get there's a huge Pudgy booster. That's nice. They're boosting their ecosystem. It's logical. There's this like mega giga chad roll or something that I think a lot of people have that you would see as a booster. And, I would see, Teacher Katie says, in the chat, Matt, last 2 weeks, my XP was nerfed, more activity. So frustrating, mesh, so many streaming issues. Are they even onboarding streamers? Don't think they've done a good job so far. Look, I'm grateful they got us streaming. They got us on the, stream. They got us on a video. But they did do this thing where there were people who could follow people. So I have 484 followers. Cap's got, I think, 650 or something like that. Always thought that push notifications to start would be a good idea. Get SMS, email things when you have people that that are going live. So, I think that there is people didn't know Cap sharing his GM with his sashimi, which I don't think it's ahi tuna. I think he said it's mahi mahi on there, Mel, just so you know, and from yesterday, and it looks delicious. It sounds like they caught it, cut it, and put it out there. So if you're looking in the chat, Cap is eating well, and I'm jealous because I would kill for some sashimi. It would actually fit into my diet that I'm on right now, which I would probably kill a man for a piece of bread right now. I had bread for the first time in like a month on Saturday, and it was a religious experience. I saw the face of God. But we'll get to the daily market update in a second because I see 2 Peterson out there talking about the blood in the streets today. We'll talk about what's happening. But to get back to the point I was making, we have Pengu token down 25%. I get it. That's how the market goes. They're going to go to work on that. They're trying to work on that. They have focus on it. Pudgy Penguins seems to be doing well globally. Obviously, it's always calm before the storm, but it seems like as a business, they are operating well. Abstract was supposed to be the big blockchain. We heard Luca say it's the biggest blockchain in Korea this week. I'd love to see the data behind it. I'm sure that, he's basing it on something and not just kind of making statements, but I'd be curious what that is. But we've seen lower TVL. We haven't seen a lot of updates to streaming. We haven't had a flash badge in months. The reward system is kind of confusing, and we're seeing a lot of FUD on the timeline. We're seeing DApp saying they're not getting marketing support. And again, I'm not here to FUD. I'm just stating what I think a lot of the market's feeling and a lot of things we've been hearing. The gold, it sounds like they're going to add some new tiers. But, for those who aren't aware, again, if you had gone to the gold tier in Abstract earning XP, getting to platinum is impossible. But there is, and then the last thing you hear is feedback because there's this clickiness, which again, I think there's always clickiness in any community, but on a blockchain, it depends how ubiquitous you want to be in. In a consumer chain, you probably don't want clickiness because most consumers aren't in the click. But again, you see this, 300,000, 200,000. I'm like, all right, well, I got 9,000 this week. Wait, I got 19,000. Okay, I got 5,000 this week. Wait, I got 25,000. It's confusing. And I'm not going to tear up. So it kind of demotivates it. NFTs, a lot of them underwater for a lot of people who had bought them. Meme coins, underwater for a lot of people who had bought them. I know there's some people who are saying they were down like tens of thousands of dollars on meme coins because they're holding them for the XP. And now we're hearing, I believe, Get Rich Nick said, Jambert in the chat, take me forever to get to platinum. Intelligency saying, I don't even know any of the team. But the take that I had this morning is I saw Luca saying, like, Pudgy Penguins wants to get into music. Again, this isn't FUD. This is just plain how most people look at businesses. In most situations, like when I worked at Nestle, if one of the Nestle divisions wasn't doing well, it's not that you didn't focus on the other division, but you kind of had leadership take an eye on that and say, how do we get this thing fixed? Hearing them get into music makes me worry about, are they spreading themselves too thin? Because it doesn't seem like Abstract's getting the love. It doesn't seem like it has the same marketing love. It doesn't seem like it has the same, love from hearing from the team and sort of the people on the top. I just worry that if you looked at any business and if you said, hey, here's my business, here's my business, and we sell one frozen food, we sell frozen food, so we sell a microwavable meal. And on the other hand, we sell, let's say a, set of protein bars. And the protein bar business was not doing well and didn't have good sentiment around it. That's considered a issue. That's a flag, right? And hearing about like Penguins evolving this, Penguins doing that, it feels like after Korea Blockchain Week, Luca probably needs to give some love to Abstract. Sentiment on the timeline's not good. Hearing TGE might not be this year from a lot of people when he had initially said Q4. Mesh says, yes, spreading themselves way too thin. It's crazy to see Story Protocol performing better. But that's the thing about focus. When I watch the Rect, the Rect presentation from Korea Blockchain Week, I hear a strategy, I hear a plan, I hear a focus. They have a coin, the coin connects to their product. Their product is, continuing to expand. Obviously, need to get distribution. They introduced a new category. It's an energy drink. I imagine if Rec Sparkling Water wasn't doing very well, they would focus more energy on there if they had two sectors there. But, Rect Energy comes out the gate, partnership with FaZe Clan. Last time FaZe Clan did a partnership with an energy drink, it shot to the #1 energy drink in the world. So I only bring this up to say, if I'm in charge of Igloo right now, and I'm looking at the brands, are they continuing to put more and more resources towards Pudgy Penguin and less resources towards Abstract? Or are they going to go in that direction? Because it's concerning to see what's happening right now, because you can't not put those two and two together. And at the very least, if you're Luca Netz and if you're this team, I think you need to be thinking about what this does as a contagion. Because again, right now, like, it feels like they need to come in and they need to say, look, is there something we can do to make Abstract to help Abstract do better? And again, we talked on this show, we gave 4 marketing ideas on this show, 4 activation ideas on this show, all these different things to say, like, here's some ideas, some things they could do. Again, they require time, money, and energy. They got to have a team. I don't know what's going on with the team there, so I'm not going to be the one who comes out and says, I saw people who are being way over the top. Like I saw one person saying something about how there's all ref links on their portal, which is true, but also they might just be placing those in place of UTM codes. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to say that somebody's skeezing on the back end. There's people saying that they're scamming on meme coins. I'm not going to say that that's happening. And there are people calling for people to be fired. I'm not even going to go that far because I think, the team, especially early on, did a pretty good job. Seemed like they had a pretty good plan off the launch. It's not shooting Abstract down and fudding them into the ground. It's not saying that they're, not going to succeed, but it is saying that if you're introducing, and look, Machiavelli here in the chat, Machiavelli in the chat with a couple of ones say, it's okay to say it. Luca and team are failing at the blockchain situation. A lot of teams are unhappy and looking for a new home is what I'm hearing. Follows it up by saying, stop participating. And I stopped participating, and so did most. I know it. So do most people. I know it doesn't seem clicky and not fun anymore. Also, the community is the chosen KOLs. Nobody wants to pay attention to, but they're going to be rich at TGE. Again, like, point being here, as I read some of these comments, I think a lot of people have this sentiment right now. And if you're the leader of the business, he's got to do what he's got to do at Create Blockchain Week. He has his plans in place. All of those things are important. But if you have Pengu down 25%, blockchain losing TVL and teams and companies and apps, and meme coins are underwater and NFTs are underwater, and there's critics on the timeline, you got to step in and try to do something. Like, that's what happens with businesses. There's really two options with those businesses. But in most cases, and again, I've worked at very large, very successful companies. I know we like to like throw our nose up at Web 2 sometimes, but there's a reason companies are successful and they're Fortune 200 companies or the world's largest food brand. And it's when a company is not being successful, or a brand with a brand group of brands not being successful, you take a new leader. I've seen it happen dozens of times, who you believe can turn the ship around. You put them in charge of it, or you as a leader pay more attention to it. I can't understand, because I just feel like we've seen for the past, I don't know, Abstract was the belle of the ball 6 months ago. And then a couple months after still. And then the past couple months, it's felt like, okay, no flash badges. Points don't make sense. NFT's not doing well. TVL's not rising. If anything, it's falling. You know, NFT's not doing well. And I have this group of people. And the other thing that I'll tell you I'm worried about, we'll go to Booching here in a second. Appreciate you coming up, Booching, is that I'm increasingly see the Pudgy Penguin community. And this is one of the red flags I see. Maybe this is a tweet I'll throw out today and get some opinions. I'm increasingly seeing Pudgy Penguin community members who were, don't fade Abstract. You're not, you are not bullish enough on Abstract, saying, well, Abstract's different. Abstract's different. I'm not, no, it's Pudgy's over here. Abstract's over here. I'm seeing a lot of community members, a bunch on the timeline say, no, that's different. And maybe it's just sort of a fair weather fandom thing. I don't know. But you need to step in and do something in these situations, even if it's just a perception issue, and explain why it's wrong, because it was going really, really well for a period of time. Now hearing all these things, that's the concern I'm facing right now. And I know a lot of people might look at it and say, I'm overreacting, or you're reacting to the timeline, and this too shall pass, and, markets are down, and yada, yada, yada. But you have to call a spade a spade. If a business has, like, people say this about Yuga, people have a lot of thoughts about Yuga. If one particular part of Yuga is not doing well, people have a whole lot to say about Yuga as a whole. Got to hold it both ways. Let's go to Booching. Booching, get in here. GM, thanks for popping up.
GM, thanks for having me. Abstract is certainly one of those more interesting ecosystems where you're either full in or full out. Like, there's almost no in between now, right? We're at a weird turning point where, like you said, the value prop of continuing to stay, you break that gold tier level. How do you keep generating XP? Oh, I saw a post that somebody made 267,000 XP. That's cool. I don't have a big or a lil or any other, mega multiplier. So incentive drop-ish, but no, there's still a lot of other interesting things, even within the things that are there, that are taking place, right? Like, quietly launched Frankie Go Season 2, and, people that are well informed with that, but even those as a casual game player, an easy, sticky game that has a repeat cycle that will catch, right? We still don't have the latest from Gigaverse eggs, but you have ROMs that have their whole new room now, right? So there's a whole different avenue now where if you maxed out to level 60, you can move on and keep going. It's not a dead zone, and clearly there's a lot more being developed there, but that's, a little more in the weeds to that. But all that to say is, in each different subtle capacity, there's still things that are growing. There's still things making progress in the ecosystem. But to your point, the ecosystem itself isn't doing itself a lot of favors right now. Like, that sentiment is a tough thing to retain. And, the PvP that went even harder there, because you said, oh, how much liquidity do we have? How many meme tokens can, survive the push? And, the public battles about verification and anything else that went down. And it's like, okay, so where's the next phase? Like, we can get everybody in the room. right? The value prop of Abstract was it was so easy to get in, anybody could do it. But how did we keep them? Like, how does Abstract keep people wanting to go back? So that's my interesting thought process on where it goes next from, Q4 and beyond there.
Yeah, it's a good take. And I think, and I appreciate the take and the thought process. And you're right, there is some good stuff going on over there, to the point though, where I hear about certain groups and how they move. Like, moving blockchains is a lot easier than it used to be. And it's not like this isn't Frank D. God's on the bridge move. This is now, an EVM compatible game in theory. The like, let's say Mega ETH launches to success and it already has these dApps on the backbone. It's going, like, Gigaverse can move to Mega ETH. Nothing would stop it. And in fact, it would probably pump. Crazy suggestion in the war room that we were talking about as we kicked it back and forth, which I'll kind of put out there. If Abstract truly is going poorly, there is a world where you cut it and you say, we're going to reward Pengu from our Pengu rewards bag to the people based on their XP and Abstract, and we're going to focus all our energy on Pengu and Pudgy Penguins. It cooks. It's the end of Abstract. I'm not saying that should happen. They're obviously putting a lot of time and energy towards it, but I could see a world where that would be an outcome, which you see with businesses, by the way. Progressive had insurance in Australia for years and eventually just cut the bait with it and left it, and that happens. Had another point someone made, like, look, the whole market's down, and so we're picking and choosing. I'm not picking and choosing. I'm giving it as one data supporting point, which is they have 3 divisions, and one of them is a token, and also that token is down 25% a week, which is the worst performing thing in my portfolio. So that's all I'm saying. I understand the whole market's down, memes go down. It's not saying that the whole market isn't down. I get it. The market's down. In fact, I kind of caveated that. It's more so the point that if you have 3 things going on, Pengu, Pudgy Penguins, and Abstract, and one of those things is being wildly successful and the other 2 don't seem to be. And, I think that there's I think there's definitely a concern that comes in there. So yeah, it's like, what do you do to keep people here? And again, we gave ideas. Gaming turnings with the games. We gave ideas of, like how to, get people over to streaming and streaming platforms and how you support them in different ways. But it just feels like there isn't that same level of effort going there. And again, it's not meant to be FUD. It's something that we've talked about for quite some time on this show. And I've heard on the timeline quite a bit, and I've seen it, and they're making some changes, and I respect them working on it. It's just finding myself looking at this and saying, gosh, guys, I just don't know. And I just think in any other business, people are very adamant about, like I said, look, I mean, we're going to be talking ApeCoin here a little bit, and not speaking on behalf of my guests or whatever, but anytime something goes on, there's an other side glitch in Yuga, people have a lot to say about it in the whole company. Well, if Abstract's not doing well and Pudgy Penguins is, it's like, you can't hold the double standard there. You got to be honest and say, like, one part of the company is not doing quite as well, and that's when leadership steps in. So we'll see if he does. It really has hit a crescendo this week, and I know Luca is at Korea Blockchain Week, so he's out of the office a little bit, and he's kind of preoccupied. So absolutely in no way, shape, or form am I saying that, he's not going to fix this, or it can't be fixed, or everything's not fixable. It's funny kind of the pushback and seeing all the things where it went from, again, Pudgy Penguin community telling me, hey, we're all about Abstract, don't fade Abstract. And now I'm hearing him say, that's a different thing. It's not the same. So it's just completely, like, those 2 things don't kind of track to me. So I don't know. It's just, it's concerns to me. Go to Booching here in a second again, and then we'll bring on our special guest. We'll talk a little Project Raid, do the daily market update after that, and then potentially close down from there. But get back in here, Booching.
Yeah, I'll give you quick notes because I know we're jumping to the next thing. But the thought that I had, especially because you brought up the TGE concerns, right? And the thought that's been lingering in my mind with the ecosystem is that the integration of Pengu tokens supposedly being the massive, churn of anything that's supposed to live and breathe in there, right? So the question is, if it ends up that the rewards for TG ended up coming out of the war chest, like, are people mad at that? I don't think so. If it ended up that the Canary TF or whatever they had filed there for that ends up being brought to fruition there, it's like, hey, so now I ended up getting rewarded that way with, like you said, like, oh, if the token's not doing great, but if the token does great, that changes that perspective So is it the argument to say why do an ABS token? I don't know. That's I've tried to debate that fairly regularly in mind to see what the true value is. I mean, I know we're getting C mask and everything else, so it's like, why not? Everybody else is doing it, so it'd be silly not to. But if Pengu's not exactly that, then it's like, is it a competing interest? So that's my closing thought on where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's sort of the thing, and again, we'll bring our friends on here in a second, but it's sort of the same thing where, look, I like, one, shout out to, you think about ApeCoin and the way it's thriving since then, pretty exciting, but it's the same thing as like when like Cool Man's Universe drops a secondary collection when the floor is like 0.17 or something, and you're like, do we really need a secondary collection? Do we really need to expand this community? Like, do you really need another token if the product itself isn't getting as much love? And I just don't know. So anyway, a lot of discussion. We'll probably continue it on the back end of the interview because it seems like there's some interest in this one. And I know it seems to be a hot button topic with a lot of people. But look, I'm just giving how I feel about it. And, it's definitely worth discussing. But we're going to do ApeChain Architects here because we got some exciting, bullish stuff to talk about for sure on a day when the market is bleeding. Happy to bring on my friends once again, SimpleFarmer and Mr. PPman, who I have just seen absolutely cooking on the timeline, not just about hype, but making sure we keep our boy Tebow in check as he needs to focus and lock in. So appreciate that very much, gentlemen. But big announcement today, or yesterday, I should say, 2 days ago. My brain is completely broken. Time is a flat circle in Web3. SimpleFarmer is, I think, a little overdressed today. He's wearing a shirt, so maybe a little bit of that's basically if I had worn a tuxedo to the show. But want to get in on this latest move. So obviously, ApeCoin went over to Solana. Felt like that was a kick the door down moment. It was partnership after partnership after partnership. It was a week when everybody didn't sleep at that company, and you kept it going. Then we see them over to Hyperliquid. Got me excited. And look, I am going to be blatantly selfish here and say that Project X is my fave, right? I mean, I love Project X. I think it's a great place. I think Bobby and Lambo are awesome. But SimpleFarmer, talk about this. So you started with Solana. You then went to Hyperliquid. I don't know if we're done yet. Maybe we'll get some teasers there. But like, feels like that was the logical next move. Talk about that part of it and what it was like and the decision to kind of go over to the Hyper EVM ecosystem. Ooh, don't have sound on you for some reason. Let me double check on that. I don't know if it's on my end or not. I don't think so. Hopefully we get it. PPman, can we get a mic check on you and actually see?
What's up, Steve?
We do have PPman. So SimpleFarmer is working on the sound on there as well.
Take the question if you want, and then I'll let Simple expound on it.
Yeah, hit it.
The question was, why Hyperliquid, right? Like, what's the intention in there?
Yeah, why Hyperliquid? It was the second thing out the gate. Solana made sense in the first one. That's where meme coins and coins in general are traded. But then you went to Hyperliquid. Talk to me through that.
Yeah, so I think that stepping back, what we're doing here with Raid is we're basically expanding ApeCoin's audience, ApeCoin's presence, and its utility. Like, what is it that you can do with ApeCoin? When we did Solana, if you think about Solana has, millions of very casual users. It's people that either have, a few dollars here or, perhaps are whales, but like they go, superficially into whatever the meta is. If you go to Hyperliquid, even though Hyperliquid has less users, let's call it like a few 100,000 users, they're very hardcore, intense, know what they're doing kind of users. And I think that you see it in the product usage. Like Hyperliquid right now, sure, there are a bunch of forks. If you think about Hyper EVM specifically, it's, Project X is a unit fork. Felix is a liquidity fork, liquidity 2 specifically. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're taking advantage of, Hyperliquid's insane liquidity on Hypercore And they're basically, or at least the expectation is that will come, innovation will come with that as you get a bunch of liquidity. You can build on top of those things. And we want ApeCoin to be in the middle of that. I think that, I said this in the past when you and I had a chat. ApeChain will always be the home for ApeCoin. I think that all value will accrue back to ApeChain. But at the end of the day, we should not, be cornering ourselves into a specific area of the market when we can use our ApeCoin for our favorite projects. In your case, Project X. I'm a big fan of Hyperdeed, for example. But yeah.
Yeah, I am. I love that, and I love the other protocols. SimpleFarmer, let's get a mic check.
Yeah, coming in now.
Yeah, hit it. So PPman gave some of the logic, talked about some of the products, some of the things that are some of the reasoning by. But can you talk about, actually, since we kind of got the why, can you talk about the how? How does this even go? Because I actually, look, I am newer to DeFi. Obviously, I'm very transparent about that. I am newer to, and I am not one who knows how. I'm not a big Toki guy. I was an NFT guy. I hold some things, but I don't know as much about it. How do you go about getting a ticker, moving to an ecosystem, getting set up with, liquidity? Like, how does this work? Because I don't think a lot of people don't know how you migrate chains, because I imagine it's a lot of work and a big lift.
Definitely. Yeah. And so there's a couple of key things here. One is you can make a token multi-chain using what's called Layer Zero's OFT standard, and it stands for Omni-Fungible Token. And essentially what it does is it sends a cross-chain message to a smart contract. And so when somebody bridges the token to the new chain, that smart contract releases a portion of the supply that corresponds with how much you bridged. And then essentially you have that supply on the new chain. The important thing to know with cross-chain deployments, and this is the case for any token, they're not super effective if you're taking liquidity off of a different chain and essentially putting your liquidity in half from the previous chain and then adding it to a new chain. They are effective when what you're doing is adding brand new liquidity, or essentially just supplementing the net liquidity supporting the token. And so that's exactly what we did with ApeCoin with the Hyperliquid launch. And the really interesting thing about HyperEVM and Hyperliquid Spot is you can't just deploy a token. It doesn't really work like Solana or ETH mainnet. You actually have to buy the ticker. And so that's something we had to do for ApeCoin here specifically. And just speaking to some of the TradFi folks, some of the people who are in the trenches of HyperEVM and the DApps there, they felt that the fact that we came through and bought the ticker, the fact that we came through and integrated with the big dogs and like some of the smaller protocols too, really early, kind of shows that we didn't just come to do like a quick job. We're here to do like really in-depth integration and make sure that ApeCoin has exposure within the best products in the ecosystem. So we're super glad to partner with the folks, like you said, Project X, fantastic team, fantastic people, making DeFi sexy again. I love to see it. I really love to see it. Fat APYs in DeFi, LPing is like, that's the lifeblood of what crypto has been built on for the past years. Base runs on trading. It runs on swaps. Aerodrome, their whole model is built on having swapping volume. And so it's like a DEX. Now you see what's going on with Aster and Perps protocols too. Perps protocols is just leveraged swapping, right? It's leveraged exposure into a token that you might not own. So, all of this really combines into what is now for ApeCoin a way bigger suite of products and protocols that you can utilize your token for. And for me, it's exciting. Like I'm just enjoying this. I feel like we're doing a lot of things that just make sense, right? And that's the easiest way to win, in my opinion.
So when you do this, because I love it, because I think it's one of those things where it's like strategically, I'm big on like, what is the strategy and does it make sense? And look, I think a lot of people lose grace on historically, and people have amnesia about what the market was and what existed in the past. And like, look, ApeCoin launched, give to the community, grants DAO. That was one direction of it. We had conversations ad infinitum about the DAO and the issues it might have. There are things that I was vocal about in the DAO, like sponsoring a BMW when people voted for that. On the same time, like, our show got sponsored. We made sure we delivered on that. We appreciated that. So there's some good things. There are some, not so great things, but ultimately decision came to shut that down. ApeCo comes into place. And I'm a big fan of strategy. Like when I've been talking about Story Protocol a lot lately. I actually partnered with them on a couple things, but it wasn't as much about that as it was, okay, They want to build IP. They want to make IP ubiquitous. They want to start focusing on Korea, and they're going out and get properties in Korea. Like, wrecked. They want to sell drinks. Those drinks tie to the coin. The coin is a brand coin. They want to move to energy drinks. Energy drinks are the next thing. I think ApeCo's strategy seems pretty obvious, and they keep, the term I keep hearing is the hyper financialization of ApeCoin, which is a really aggressive term. Talk about like the shift into that strategy from where the DAO was, because obviously they brought you on to lead DeFi and that started happening. But like, how do you make that decision? And talk about the decision to go for, like, you can go a lot of different directions with ApeCoin. You can go a lot of different directions with ApeCo, but the direction was hyper financialization, get this to as many places as possible. How does that discussion happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the hyper financialization of ApeCoin was inspired, of course, like PPman was the first one to coin the term. So shout out to him for being there to get like the spark started on this. And then once I saw it, I'm like, I'm running with this. Like, let's go hard and make sure this goes really well. So I think the first important factor to think about is with the DAO, with grants, what essentially those were most of the time, right? Of course, not all the time, were really bad deals for ApeCoin. They're relatively one-sided deals, pretty good for the receiving parties, pretty bad for the token and the tokenomics. This starts with ApeCoin and ApeCo not making bad deals anymore. There's no more bad deals. We're only making good deals, and good deals work when they're symbiotic or when we have the advantage, but of course, mostly symbiotic, where we are benefiting and the protocol partners are benefiting too. So the great examples of this are what you see now with like Project X, HyperSwap, Hyperdrive, right? We made deals with them. We did things that made sense, got integrated into their protocol, and it should be net profitable for both ApeCo and for their protocols. So the steps towards hyper-financialization are critical, because if we're constantly giving back more than we're getting, it's going to be unsustainable path, right? Because it's a super aggressive approach. It's a super aggressive thing to do to a token. What we have to do is stack wins. We have to stack good deal upon integration. And, and you were talking earlier about the chains and stuff. There is a very delicate juggle between on-chain and off-chain stuff, right? You can be really, really good at the off-chain stuff, and that creates a lot of hype. And a lot of our trading volume, not just for ApeCoin, but for all tokens, is actually still happening off-chain. But the thing is, we understand clearly that the future, especially a couple of years down the line, is going to be on-chain, and DeFi is most likely going to be the backbone of that. It's right now, it's the only real sustainable rev source for all of crypto. Pump fun makes revenue, right? The revenue is 100% DeFi based. It's just on swaps. It's token swaps. It's a DEX at the end of the day. So all of this is coming back full circle to ApeCoin, right? ApeCoin, the product. And so the thought process is, how do we keep stacking these wins? How do we make sure ApeCoin's in front of the users that'll be interested in the product? And then once they have the product in their hands, how do we make sure they know how they can use it? We want to make it easy for them to use. We want to be putting out solid content, explaining to people what they can do. We want the off-chain folks who are trading on ApeCoin to be excited about the macro level decisions we're making. And there's going to be, I think, a lot of interesting stuff in the short-term future there as well. But then also the decisions we're making on-chain for all the on-chain people who are the minority right now. But I think that's a thing that's for now. And I think a lot of this, not to talk too much about like abstract and all that, but I think that's a lot of the difficulty a new chain sees, right? A new chain is experiencing these problems for the first time. There's a huge difference between running a token, running an NFT collection, and running a chain. And a new chain, every single new chain I've seen has gone through the same struggles. They have a big up at launch, and they head downwards. If an airdrop comes after that airdrop, it can get even rougher. So if a company supporting a chain is not robust in terms of finances and decision-making, chains can be short-lived. So we've already seen, like Proof of Play, Pirate Nation, unfortunately, go down. Fantastic product, right? But the fact is, maybe not everything should be a chain. With ApeCoin and with ApeChain, we are deep believers that we can build a long-term winning culture that is based in like good decision-making, clever products, innovative usage of crypto, and like smart contracts. And so I think that like just those simple steps, daily, Steve, are going to be the way we're going to win here.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it's really like, it's a good point where I think a lot of people, and again, when I give critiques of the show and we give treats on the show, we pride ourselves on like, look, we're honest. It doesn't matter if it's a sponsor. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, we're never going to like throw people under the bus, but like we try to be very measured and honest in it. And to your point, I think it's a good point that out the gate, there's generally growing pains. And Yuga's been, at the forefront, because when you try a lot of new shit, like if you're the first ones to eat the berries off the bush as you're going, into a new world, if you're the settlers who try the berries off the bush, somebody's going to eat a poison berry and throw up, right? That just happens sometime. And it's a matter of like, as long as did you die or did you make it through and what did you learn? And you learn, don't eat the berries. And one thing that you said there that I think was really insightful is, and I've had this conversation with Cam and Juan and others, and I think it's a really like very good, straightforward point is that they are gung-ho on not making deals that are bad for them as a business, that are bad for the company. Because to your point, like that was a really good way of putting it. The DAO was a lot of bad deals with very few exceptions. It was a deal where you didn't necessarily get in return what you put out, but the people voting on it were community members. It was friends. It was people sometimes it was a popularity contest. It was people who maybe, didn't want to, say no, because if you voted no as a public vote. I actually want to go to PPman on that overarching point because one, PPman board closet's telling you to get a mic, and I actually said earlier I actually said it's on brand. I think you're calling in from a bathroom stall, which I appreciate and respect. It's very PPman-esque. But you've been at Yuga since the beginning, and you've watched this whole evolution. Talk about like that aspect of like trying new things and seeing how not just the community but the timeline reacts, and then I think to end it on a positive note from that, like what it's like now working on something like this. Like you seem kind of re-energized on the timeline with this new sort of mission that you're going towards.
Dude, it's 7 a.m. and I'm in a bathtub taking a bath. That's why. I'm very serious. I'll touch on a point that you mentioned, Steve. I think the DAO, so individually, like the people running the DAO, individually, they're great, capable people. The thing is that structurally, like if you put them in this DAO structure, as you mentioned, with community members voting, it's basically an elephant with two broken legs. Like it just doesn't move. Like, and if when it moves, it doesn't move the right direction. So if you think of what we've been doing with Project Raid, we've been acting quite fast. Like we launched on Solana 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks later, we're on Hyperliquid or Hyper EVM specifically. And I don't want to ruin what's next, but we're going to move very fast on this direction, which includes everything that Simple mentioned on chain versus and other stuff that I'll just keep it to myself. It's going to be good. But what I'm trying to say here is, I think the strategy needs to be flexible enough to allow for iteration. If we are scared for perfection, I don't think we're going to get as far as we can if we just go at it, iterate, so that the next thing that we do, we take all the lessons that we learned and implement them. And I think that the community has been very receptive. I think that the partners we've had, including Solana and Hyperliquid, something like 30 different partners in these past 2 weeks. In short, some of them were, I wouldn't say better, but like the community received them much better than others, and that's the part of iterating. I think that being scared of having, a potential partner that we may think is amazing but may not click with our community, we shouldn't be that scared. And yeah, back to the point about like the deal side, I agree. I think that if you look at, ApeCoin, or at least the DAO and ApeCo as a piggy bank, there's no way you're going to get ahead. At the end of the day, when a deal is made, all of us who hold ApeCoin pay for it. What is it? The way that I'm thinking about it.
I mean, I love that, and I love seeing the energy that you're bringing and all that. And I gotta ask, like, what has been the reaction? You talked about the reaction being positive from the community. Again, as somebody within this community, I will do my best to beat the drum of like, I mean, we said it like on this show. We worked with the DAO, we worked with the Banana Bill, and we worked with ApeCo. And we were very transparent about the experiences of all of those. And our experience with ApeCo was things moved quickly. It was very focused on ROI and what actually works. Like, right, we have these sponsor segments, we have these shows, we do certain things where we host certain panels, and it was like, hey, how are we going to make this work so that you can maximize it on the timeline and continue to be, because Cap and I try to be community leaders within the club. We love the club and it matters to us, and not to like deputize ourselves, but it's important because people ask me, like, literally, I kid you not, this is not like me, when I say this, something like that, I mean, like, the apes will have an announcement of some sort, positive, negative, neutral, or, Yuga. And I will have people in my DMs like, what are your thoughts on this? As if they're like waiting for like sort of an opinion to make sure that they, feel one way or the other. And so like, we're dead honest about it. Working with ApeCo was the best experience we had. It was just flat out. It was quick. It moved well. And I think that, the point you're making is really sound there, but like, how was the community reaction from your end? Because, PPman, you're the most tied into the community, right? You're as tied in as you get. What was the community reaction? Talk about it being positive. Were there people who pushed back, or does it seem like people have mostly been excited about this because it's like, hey, we got a direction and we have a mission?
Yeah, I think the community has been community perception has been pretty good, and you can see it in the timeline. But what I like the most about the reception is I think there's been a lot of curious people. Like in one of my tweets, I said, and I meant this, and I still mean it, that my DMs are open. Any questions? I'm here to help. And bro, my DMs just are swamped. So like, if people are out there just haven't replied, I will. But that's actually quite exciting because like, it's not only about like, being bullish and having a good reaction. It's also about like, all right, I'm excited about this. How can I do it? I don't know how to do it, but I want to learn. Which reminds me, I'm probably going to open a group chat with, and if anybody wants to be part of that group chat, DM me. I think it's going to be easier. But yeah, a lot of curiosity, excitement, and yeah, that's how I've seen the reception.
I love that. And SimpleFarmer, along those lines, you mentioned DeFi is getting sexy again, or at least it's at least for this community. One of the things I love about this is that, look, I've been transparent. I started getting into DeFi about 2 months ago when I decided enough is enough. I need to learn this. I'm in this space because I was almost embarrassed, too lazy. It was a different language. I mean, it was like reading a foreign language, impermanent loss, liquidity pools, and all the different like protocols and the bridging that was necessary to do it. And I have personally onboarded, I'm not making it up when I say dozens of people who I've like, similar to what PPman says about the DMs. I have said, like, if people want help getting onto some of these protocols, I've been helping people out. I'm in DMs, showing them which wallet, what to do, where. And so, like, it's been something that's been a passion of mine because it almost reminds me, and I'll get to the question here in a sec, but it's almost reminded me akin to when I was 28, 29 years old. I had never been educated on finance. My parents weren't educated on finance. They didn't know what they were doing. I wasn't educated on school. And I read, ironically enough, at this point, because now the Cramer Index thing, Get Rich Slowly by Jim Cramer, or Get Rich Carefully, I can't remember what the title is, but it talked about like IRAs, it talked about index funds, and I was like, holy shit, nobody's told me this and anybody can do it. And I got aggressive with finance, and I, maxed my 401k. I didn't have a 401k till I was 27. I tossed in my IRA. I didn't have an IRA till I was 30. And I went after index funds and I got, aggressive. I had the same sort of unlock when I got into DeFi where I was like, what the hell? You can run a double-sided liquidity pool and print money and then just put that money back into the liquidity pool. And again, assuming the numbers are going up and everything. But if you use USDC on one side, then you dollar cost average one way or the other. I was like, this is awesome. Like, I want to tell absolutely everyone. It's like someone who just discovered CrossFit. I want to tell everyone about it. So talk about the fact that, one of the things I think maybe you probably see, but I don't know if you take for granted is like when I posted about Project X yesterday, a lot of people asking, educate me in this, educate me in this. So I'm going to put some videos. You've been doing some educational content and putting it out there. How does it feel that you're potentially bringing an entirely new swath of people who have been in crypto for 4 or 5 years at this point into DeFi, and you get to be the Sherpa that does it? Is that a cool feeling? I mean, I think it's awesome, right?
I've always wanted to be a DeFi Sherpa, honestly. that was my
Where's my guidance counselor on that one in high school, right? I mean, I would have been across it, right? Yeah.
For real. In the economics, I think peer-to-peer, essentially decentralized finance, is eventually going to be taught in high schools because it's just a more effective system. Less middlemans. It works through the communications system that we use around the world, which is the internet. And so it's just a better way of doing things. It keeps more money in people's pockets and less money into, like corporations' pockets. That was the point of crypto. Right? That's why we did this whole thing. It's interesting because people talk and people get so excited about these products that come through. And my issue is I know for a fact that 99.9% of revenue in crypto is coming from token swapping, lending, or speculation. So speculation is perps, stuff like that, in futures. Other than that, there isn't revenue being made with tokens. All of these things are peer-to-peer financial interactions routed through smart contracts. And what I'm noticing now is that people are picking up more and more on it again. And what you end up seeing is a super effective protocol creating flywheels with DeFi integrated. So great point, a great product that I liked was TokenWorks, the NFT strategy. So Ape strategy, MEEP strategy, Burb strategy. These are DeFi products. They are DeFi products. They are powered by token swapping fees, essentially DEX fees getting rerouted into buying NFTs. And then the secondary system of that is, right, the flipping of the NFT for a higher price, which actually is a much less effective economic model than just the swapping itself, right? We've seen the swaps come through and generate massive revenue, buy a ton of NFTs off the floor. And now we have to see how well that works for continuing to flip its way up. It's exciting because I think people are finally coming back to the real world and realizing, especially, you know, seasoned, clever investors like yourself, Steve, you're going to be most interested in LPing on a project X. Anything above 20, 30% APY is great. Like, you're not going to get that anywhere on a real world asset, on USDC. I mean, on the US dollar, on your bank, you're never going to get that. And you're getting that just for providing your token for swapping. And I love it when you have a pool where you like both tokens, because then your impermanent loss doesn't really feel so bad, right? It's like, for me, Ape Hype, great pool. They usually move some together. Right now, obviously, Hype has been the winner of the cycle, but I think going forward in the future, you'll see a lot more congruent motion there. Hopefully.
I don't know if you checked it, by the way, in the last 24 hours, but because with all the Astro stuff happening, but it's funny because I heard some people being like, oh, you're pairing Ape with Hype, get ready to have a lot of Ape, which, by the way, totally fine with that. But also, no, I dropped a 50-50 pool. It is 75% Hype this morning. So if people are, I know the market's down across the board, but people are like saying like, oh, well, you know, like Hype's the darling of the cycle, and Ape, you know, it's going to trade between 45 and 62, and and I'm like, look, maybe so, but actually, like, if they range trade, I win, number one. And number two, hasn't been the case. Like, Hype's been getting some heat, and Ape's kind of heating up a little bit. I did not expect to wake up this morning because I went to bed last night. It was 75-25 the other way. I wake up this morning, I've got another like $10, $20 in fees, and it's 25, 75 the other way. So I do think that there is a lot of excitement there around it. And like you said, like I probably need to, here's my thing. Like, I like onboarding people individually one-on-one. I do think like sessions, PPman talks about his DM being open. I think sessions might be in order with how many people are getting into it. Just, Ape DeFi sessions or something, because I do think that there's probably an opportunity to educate enough people. I'm going to do a video on what I know. I only know what I know. And the point you made about liquidity pools, I think I just want to double tap on, because a lot of people say, where does this yield come from? And the answer is trading volume. Because, with like vaults, which I love vaults, like I like Katana, but part of that yield, it's like I get a normal USDC yield and a normal ETH yield, and then they juice it with their token, which is coming towards TGE, which that's a great way to juice a vault. Like, they can do that. But those juice vaults, like, in theory, it's like, well, what is the token for? And is it going to be worth their FTV? And am I really earning that yield? In liquidity pools, correct me if I'm wrong, the token volume, as long as the token is trading, that is just me getting fees from those exchanges, which are then put back into my wallet because I get that little bit for, it's like, I make the analogy to people that if you could own Apple and Meta stock, and every time they're traded, when one goes up or the other, you get a little fee instead of the exchange owning all of that. It's like, that's the idea. It's decentralizing finances. Why DeFi? Am I playing that back correctly?
Yeah, and you're very right. And also in the near-term future, we are built as ApeChain on top of Arbitrum 1. There's a sleeping giant coming through. You should check out the post from Vlad Tenev regarding what they're planning with Robinhood chain being built on Arbitrum 1. It's very exciting. So you'll be able to do exactly that, with the Apple, I don't know what you said for the other pair with the stock there. I forgot. But you'll be able to do exactly that. So imagine when you can create an LP between two stocks. And so what we're going to see slowly, in my opinion, is going to be more real world assets, for example, stocks, coming through and being traded on through decentralized financial rails. And so it's going to continue to grow. And so these DEXs are all going to do really well. The chains that have good tokens and have the ability, give you the ability to buy those good tokens, are going to do really well. The chains that have clever tokenomics and base their whole revenue system off of good tokenomics are going to do well. That's why I'm always going to be super bullish on Hyperliquid. I think their tokenomics is something we really strive for with ApeCoin. And it's something we're moving towards that direction. We are well aware of the ways we'll be able to have revenue for ApeCoin. We're well aware that deflationary staking is ending at the end of the year and the unlocks are ending. And so it's about positioning ourselves to be the big winner of the rest of the cycle or the upcoming cycles, because ApeChain, Yuga Labs, ApeCoin, Bored Ape Yacht Club, this is all here to stay. We have tokens that last a single cycle. ApeCoin has already lived out a cycle, so we know it's not going anywhere. Now it's about what happens when these tokens become generational, right? Bitcoin is obviously going to be a generational asset. I wouldn't be surprised if my son, who's 1.5 years old now, maybe he's using Bitcoin and not using any type of fiat in his purchasing. What I'm saying is ApeCoin is going to be mentioned in that same breath. It's going to be a multi-generational cryptocurrency. And we talked about this in private, Steve. Maybe we even get to the day where we're just referring to these as currencies.
Yeah. I love that conversation because we have this conversation where people use the term NFT and it's the term NFT isn't going to exist. It's going to be tickets. You don't go to a football game and say, hold on, let me grab my QR code so I can get in the game. You say, let me grab my ticket. It's the QR code that's technology that's powering it. Similar to NFTs, with cryptocurrencies, I don't know what we'll call them. It's just it's just going to be called the thing. So we talk about Wyoming having a stable coin that they're building through AVAX to get advantages within Wyoming using that, right? In theory, you could have, a percentage of yield. You could earn money off certain businesses, et cetera, et cetera. It's I think you'll just say ApeCoin, Wyoming coin. Oh, I should convert my Wyoming coin. And instead of going and converting it at a fucking window like you did when I was growing up with cash when you went to Canada and you exchanged it when you were 19 so you could gamble in Windsor, instead, you take that and you just hit 2 buttons and you're switched over and you got your thing. And that becomes a competitive landscape. On that, I actually been curious how you think about that as a competitive landscape of, you're giving people more reasons to use ApeCoin, which is obviously good for the coin. Run those sequencers, get that money, collect those fees, et cetera, et cetera. How do you think about giving people reasons to buy and hold ApeCoin besides sort of the DeFi angle of it, if you're looking at it? Because that's a question I'm getting in the chat and from some other people. It's okay, so I get it. Do I purchase things in ApeCoin? Do I hold ApeCoin for advantages in ecosystems? Obviously, we're getting that wall chain bonus for that. That's a utility reason. How do you think about it on the utility side for reasons to hold?
Yeah, that's another really good question. So I think every day you hold an asset, you're essentially buying it at that market price. So you should love that asset. And for that to be true, it has to be a great store of value. So step one is the super deep liquidity. So with Project Raid, across the chains where we've both improved liquidity, like Arbitrum One, but also the chains where we've seeded additional liquidity, like Solana and Hyperliquid, you have an additional $1.3 million supporting ApeCoin on decentralized exchanges. Now, we talk about this is $1.3 million in sell-side liquidity. Essentially, what that means is ApeCoin can now absorb way more sell pressure without the price going down as much. This is important for an investor, right? If you're coming through and you're a whale, if you want to buy 6 figures worth of the token, you need to feel that comfortably that token is highly liquid, so you know that if any point you want to capitalize and switch back into a BTC or USDC or an ETH, assets that we consider great assets, you want to feel that there is ample liquidity to support those swaps. So that was step one of Raid and with this cross-chain implementation. It was not about fractionalizing liquidity, but about deepening liquidity using our own funds, to be honest with you, Steve. So we didn't take liquidity out of any other DEX. All we've been doing is adding. Now, this is slightly less sexy than the buyback narrative, but it actually works better. And I explained this in the previous show. I do still think there's something to be said for buybacks because I think they're actually a great marketing tool. And so you see that also with MicroStrategy, what they do for BTC. You see a chart, you see these buys coming through, and it creates this bullish sentiment behind the token. Rekt announced they did a buyback as well, right? These are very bullish sentiment things for the community. So I think there's two sides to this. One is the narrative-based plays where people feel good about the token when they buy it. The second is the real depth. So the real depth is the liquidity, the utility, the places you can use it, and then it's about expanding that. So hyper-financialization is about everything, man. I don't think in the short-term future, but in the long-term future, I think there's no reason companies like, MasterCard and Visa should be making tens of billions of dollars every year when we have a peer-to-peer financial system. We probably don't need them. And so if we have rails where people are using ApeCoin, for example, to buy a home, pay for a car, things like this in the real world, the cryptocurrency is becoming more liquid, right? As we're moving forward, it's becoming more useful. And as we make these steps towards this hyper financialization, it's just more reasons to hold this as a long-term store of value. And of course, it's important for people that the price goes up. So it's going to be important for us. It's on us to be making ApeCoin a loud voice in the markets where people are interested in cryptocurrency. So we're going to be attacking heavily markets like Korea, which is super hot now, Turkey, Brazil, and I think PPman could give more details on that as well.
For sure. By the way, Steve, I'll also answer your question, how I'm using my ApeCoin and why I'm holding it. I actually have a little barbell strategy. Like, sure, I'm taking advantage of that. What is it now? 50% APY on apes. I've got on my mutants. And on the other hand, I'm using ApeCoin to farm stuff from Hyperliquid. I put out a tweet. It has 50,000 views and 100 bookmarks. So I know people are just like skimming through it. Just read the tweet. It's basically using an ApeCoin, like using your ApeCoin stack to farm protocols across HyperEVM, including Project X, Hyperbeat, HyperFi, HyperSwap. Let's see if I remember them all. Ethena, Felix, Theo. I'm probably missing a couple. But what I'm trying to say here is, sure, you've got the stable 50% APY that you know it's going to happen. And then in my opinion, you need that moonshot. You need that, those 8 protocols that you're farming so that when they TGE, if one of them is worth something, it just makes up, for all the trouble that you had with that strategy.
It's a good way to put it to work, I think. And that's well stated, because I think that that's one of the things I found in DeFi when I got into it is I prioritized yield. First of all, I want to make sure it was a safe protocol that I felt safe with. There's always protocol risk. There's always smart contract risk. Then I want to make sure that it was a, company that I kind of trusted. And then I wanted to make sure there was yield. And then I actually had high on my list of priorities there. Is there an airdrop coming? Because that's the crazy thing about some of these LPs, whether it's Meteora or whether you're using Hyperliquid, it's you are, for perps, or whether you're using, Project X for LPing, you're earning towards what eventually is going to be another liquidity event for you. So it's sort of using your assets to make more money for yourself while doing other things that make more money for yourself. So I think it's an astute kind of way to to go about it. I'll find your tweet and I will actually put it to the top of the space. I'll send it back to you here in a second. But yeah, I love hearing how you're putting it to work. And are there, so is your main thinking the uses right now? So it sounds like the strategy right now is you want to get it ubiquitous on the timeline and have people talking about it. Check wall chain campaign. Things seems to be working out quite well there. So I think that's a obviously a big one. And then after that, it's sort of getting people to use it and put it to work in DeFi. Check, makes sense. You're trying to get that out there. Was there anything else you want to add on sort of use cases there, or did you want to kind of put it at sort of that's sort of the plan at the moment and wink, wink, nudge, nudge, wait?
No, I mean, I think the biggest use case and one of the biggest, areas of demand that we'll see for ApeCoin will be on the other side. What Figgy's building, in my opinion, is just insanely cool. And it's all going to be powered by ApeCoin. Here's the thing, though. It takes time and it takes, iteration to actually build a very solid creator platform so that, you compete with the likes of Roblox and be able to have a huge economy. In the meantime, that's how I'm using my ApeCoin, but I just can't wait to use it on the other side.
Yeah, so long-term plans certainly out there, and it feels like the company itself is moving in a strong direction there, which you love to see. Couple more questions that'll let you get out of here. I know I'm keeping you over for a little bit, but I appreciate both you joining me this morning. Any updates on, so you had the Solana deployment. It felt like announcement after announcement. Obviously, Hyperliquid deployment. How is Solana going? How do you feel Hyperliquid's gone so far? And then any potential teasers for what might be to come, even if it's a very vague one, because we always love the teaser alphas. Both men conspicuously silent when you ask for teasers.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Simple. I was talking on mute. Go for it, Simple.
I think, what's important. So I think Solana's massive success. And Hyperliquid is a massive success, and we gauge that in a couple ways, right? We look at, of course, like mindshare numbers matter, but we're also talking to our partners and we're talking to the chain leaders themselves. And so the feedback that we got from like Hyperliquid, for example, is like, and like, for example, Lambo Land and Bobby, is that we are actually setting the playbook right now for doing multi-chain with a token, having these deep integrations and partnering with these protocols, having a large voice and showing that we're not doing this the cheap way, right? We're doing deep integrations. We're working with protocols. We know how these protocols work. We get on their DApps. We create videos which showcase how you can use ApeCoin on these people's DApps. And some of these DApps may not have even ever had somebody make a video for them before on how to use them. And so I think this process, the depth that's provided by Raid in itself is a success. Like I said, the mindshare has been gaining. I think you're going to see ApeCoin continuing to have a stickier floor as we're moving towards the future. And that's going to let us move in an upward direction as we continue to push bullish deployments, as we continue to improve ApeChain, as the other side continues to cook, which is, like we said, just absolutely huge. Something that people are sleeping on is that all these NFT communities, and they're not just ApeChain based communities, are now putting their 3D avatars into the other side, and we're bringing people together from across these different chains, from across these different ecosystems. We have communities participating in a singular ecosystem, a metaverse that is the other side. So for me, I would gauge it as a massive success, but we're definitely not done. You're going to see a lot more cool stuff come through on Solana, a lot more cool stuff come through with Hyperliquid. What we're going to do for the future and in perpetuity is we're going to keep our finger closely on the pulse, right? Crypto, Web3, it's an evolving industry. We're very much on the cutting edge of technology, and we want to make sure that if we catch like an early cool DApp, for example, here's a great example, Steve. There's a protocol called Uranus Perps, right? And so it's trading with leverage via X. Simple idea, super cool, easy for people, right? Because a lot of people don't know how to use a Perps protocol. And so being able to open a short or long through a tweet is great. They had a very small following. I reached out to the founder. I said, hey, I'd love to get ApeCoin integrated here. He integrated it. ApeCoin is the number one traded asset on their protocol. Day one, they integrated ApeCoin, Steve. They came in at a market cap of 550K. That token, 2 weeks later, is at a $6 million market cap. So with the reach of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, the ApeCoin community, this sleeper protocol has been given a massive voice and an audience and a network of its essentially probably first 100 to 1,000 users, and now the token is exploding. And so when we can get into those synergistic effects, I'm confident we're going to see continued integrations with like the hot new protocols that are coming through. So in the future, you know, I guess the only hint I can give is that a good one? You know what that is?
4. All right. I got to think on this one. I got to think this one through. But I like the teaser, and it will have me putting my brain into pretzel and figuring stuff out today. I did pin PPman's tweet to the top of the space, by the way, if people want to see that. Great tweet. Good ape. Love to see it. And one thing I'll say before I let you guys get out of here, you know, there is the ApeChain, ApeCoin raid leaderboard. For those who are unaware or maybe not participating or sort of not seeing that, it is a, you know, you mentioned, you know, ApeCoin, Solana, Hyperliquid, sort of in the same tweets. It actually, you know, helps you out quite a bit there, and it gets to go to the top. So it's one of those ones where, look, I'm naturally talking about it. And so it's, you know, it works for me. But I will say you are playing for second place because, again, I, you know, not just to, you know, glaze the guy, but this kid is going to work so hard. I have never seen like the work and that is this man is going. If you're curious about mindshare, about ApeCoin, Solana, I mean, GM Banger Space, loving to hear about the ApeCoin plus Solana plus Hyperliquid plans. Tebow is in the club. So we're all playing for second place, which I'm okay with. A lot of people know, like, Tebow was a groomsman in my wedding. So I've known him for 25 years pretty much. So I am more than happy to get usurped at the number one position by him. But, you know, look, I talk about things I like. I don't talk about the things I don't like. And we like the ApeCoin. We like the club. And I think last thing I'll kind of leave it on there, and then I'll get kind of any thoughts before you guys want to get out of here, is that concept you brought up about activating the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I think people underestimate that when this club wants to move in a direction and they have something to cheer around, they do. Now, look, when they have something to complain about, they'll complain about it. You know, that happens too. But when they have something to rally around, and it feels like you are moving everybody in the direction of, look, if you're in the club, if you're in the ApeChain community, if you're in the ApeCoin community, this is one unifying thing where everybody can eat and everybody can work together, and you can point people in that direction. Does it feel like that's kind of what we're doing here?
It does.
Love it. Well, look, let me let you both get out of here. I'm going to think about that hint for, I don't know, the rest of my day and try to think about what might be next. But I have some thoughts now, and yeah, I have some thoughts now, and I'm actually, I could go a bunch of different directions, so I don't want to speculate. I'm even Googling something or searching something, because I was thinking about someone specifically who uses that number quite a bit, but we shall see. But look, appreciate you both coming on this morning and giving us some updates, and I'm sure we'll have you on again soon with the next update, perhaps the one you're hinting to. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Steve, thanks so much. I'll see you at ApeFest, by the way.
Yeah, see you in a few weeks.
See you at ApeFest, Steve. I hope you come to the pool party so we can see who can hold their breath the longest.
Oh, dude, I will. I used to be able to cook in that, and yes, I am coming to the Thursday pool party, so we'll probably try to hit the challenge on that. Although I might be out of I might need to do some practicing before now and then, because I used to be electric to the point where I'd scare my mom about how much I could swim, could swim like a 40-foot pool, like both ways in the direction underwater and stuff. So would be a fun challenge to have. Although might be dangerous for Mapes. We'll see. But see you both at ApeFest.
Thanks so much,
Caesar.
Bye.
Love having them both on. Love those guys. Excited. I mean, exciting times to think about what we might be cooking towards. I am going to hit the daily market update, and then we'll talk about a little bit of the market, and then probably close this thing down around 10 o'clock. But, appreciated people who jumped in with me in the late start this morning. Kind of a hectic 24, 48 hours in my household, in my life. So not in a bad way, but, stuff going on. But we will, we'll definitely hit the daily market update and talk a little bit about some moving NFTs, some trending NFTs, and some things we have going on here.
The daily market update straight to your brain. Powered by ApeCoin, no hype, just gains. Moving on ApeChain, we bring in the heat. NFTs, fence alpha, never miss a beat. ApeChain on top, now we bring in the flex. The home of NFTs, figures now what's next. Come on, my head top, but you want the time to chop for one time.
It is time for the daily market update powered by ApeCoin, the home of NFTs. ApeChain has it all, bringing culture, fun, and community to the blockchain, the home of Project Raid, which is absolutely cooking right now. Dive in and see why ApeChain is on top. We'll go ahead and share the screen here and kind of give you some updates on some pricing. So look, this one, I'm going to show some of the faves that we have going on. Bitcoin starting to actually go green for the first time in a while, but down about 2% on the 24-hour point. ETH down about 5%, now below that 4,000 mark after we probably danced a little bit too much yesterday saying it was up at 4,100, hadn't gone below there. Solana down another 6% down to that 200 mark after hitting 250. So definitely hurting, down 20% on the week. Hyperliquid, actually mentioned Pengu being the biggest loser in my portfolio. Nay, the worst one is Hyperliquid. Hype in the last 7 days down 30%. It was at about 55, I believe, at one point. Pengu, as we've talked about, down 25% in the past 7 days. I might be doing a video on that one. ApeCoin down 13%, but down 5% on the day. Like I said, I have it paired with Hyperliquid, and so it's down about half as much on the day overall. Looking for my my NFT floor price tab to talk about NFTs just a little bit here as well. Talking about NFTs, we have CryptoPunks down a titch, Bored Apes down a titch, but pretty much flat. Pudgy Penguins up a titch. So basically kind of holding flat. Squiggles, send them to zero, man. I want to get a squiggle, so put them down. Moonbirds flat. Potentially wondering if we're going to get a token announcement from Spencer in a week. He said it was one you don't want to miss when he does the event. I don't know if that was just a teaser. Lil Pudgy's down a little bit. Newton's more or less flat as well. Lil Pudgy's flat about as well. Meebits continue to cook. That was a miss on me. I looked at them at like 0.7 or something, and they're up to they're up to 1.1. Not pictured on here, but I'm going to see if I can find it in the Good Vibes Club I was talking about. I don't know. I saw rumors of like a Good Vibes Club strategic reserve, waiting for the chart to load, but 7 days up, I believe it's a 7 day up about 13%, up to almost half an ETH. It was below 0.3, I believe, not too long ago. Now it's closing on half an ETH. So a big play for Good Vibes Club there. I picked up a couple. I'm probably going to swing trade a couple of those along with some mythics to continue to farm OpenSea. So really big opportunity there in the market for sure on NFTs. I think that's got to be my move. And trying to offset, I'm doing some swaps in OpenSea for those who are not doing the OpenSea farming. Swaps help quite a bit. But you lose money on swaps no matter what. That's just how it goes, right? You're getting fees and they're eating the fees. And I'm doing that when my LPs go out of position. But in order to offset some of that, I have been able to play the market just a little bit on the NFT side, which is, I've been, buying some NFTs, selling them when they've gone up in price. So I've been, stacking a little more ETH there while doing the farm. So a good play there. Maybe if you're looking to play the market on that one and get cute with the OpenSea farm, the Good Vibes Club. Like I said, I picked one up and I'm already above. I'm in the green on that one. So I'm probably going to make a trade there to offset some of my losses while also continuing to farm those boxes and move them up. I'm slowly falling behind. I'm like, I still have, there's 2 chests above the one I'm on. I'm on Amethyst right now, and it actually costs twice as much XP each level to go up. So I'll probably wait till noon today when there's more action and they've released new missions, just because when those voyages come out, I want to be able to say like, hey, if it's by a $50 NFT, I can double up. I can move forward and then, flip around and go back up. So playing the OpenSea farm game a little bit there for funsies and trying to work on leveling up those boxes, because I am curious about that mystery box. I've given my thesis on this show of that many, many times. So should be a good one. But look, that said, we're at about 9:53. We've done the show for about an hour and a half today. A little bit of a shorter one today. Like I said, co-host couldn't make it, but that's okay. We ride, was able to, and then, made an executive decision to say, let's start at 8:30 because I want to get my coffee. I want to get myself situated. I want to make sure we're in good shape. Turns out with the penguin discussion, from what we were hearing, probably could have started at 8 and kept going, because I think it ruffled the fins of some penguins, the feathers. I don't know what the correct term is, the flippers of some penguins, but wasn't meant to be FUD or anything like that. I think people get passionate about their communities. It's just, I think we need to hold the same standard across the board for everybody. And I think that's what we're seeing. So just my feeling on that. We shall see what happens. But yeah, if anybody has theories on what the number 4 means, feel free to DM me as I try to do my research. But that said, let's send everybody off into their day. I appreciate everyone coming through this morning and bearing with me. Cap back tomorrow for reels. And then next week, I pushed back. There is a next week a launch that we're going to do for we're going to do this launch for a new partnership we're doing, which will help us, give away some stuff to the audience with some fun gamification. On top of that, I think we're going to do our drawing for the ApeCoin winners on Show 1000, which I believe is next Thursday, if I'm doing my math correctly. So we were thinking about doing it on Friday or maybe early next week, but shit, we got a big show coming up, so why not put it there? So we'll give away thousands of dollars in ApeCoin on Show 1000, and should be a fun one. So that said, we will send everybody off into their day. Thanks to everyone who came through this morning and bearing with us and making it work. Excited to have Cap back tomorrow. He will be tan. He has eaten all this sashimi. He is feeling good and looking forward to seeing him. We will talk to everybody bright and early tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time, or maybe 8:30 a.m. Eastern time as it happened this morning. Who knows? Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody.
Thanks for tuning into Coffee with Captain, powered by ApeCoin. We hope you enjoyed the show, and remember, nothing we discussed today is financial advice. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.
Welcome to the future.